In the last video, which was the part 1 of must-have characters of each element, I covered Anemo, Geo, and Electro, and in this part, I'll cover the remaining 4 elements, so don't forget to check that one out as well. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you disagree with my recommendations, let me know down below in the comments, and I will gladly read all of them. Also, thanks to everyone for helping me reach 100 subs. I appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'm really thankful. We're starting off this one with Dendro, and for the must-have Dendro characters, I'd say Nahida and Dendro Traveler, and I'll explain why. First, for Nahida. She's by far the best Dendro applier in the game, with extremely powerful and unique elemental skill, which will provide not only on-field Dendro application, but off-field Dendro application as well. She's really free-to-play friendly since there's no need for excessive investment to make her work, and she can work well with 4-star weapons such as sacrificial fragments, and in some cases map a mare if you have to. It could be used, although I wouldn't advise it. If you have access to sacrificial fragments or even Favonius Codex, those two will be better. She's very flexible and effective in many team comps, whether it's for Burgeon, Hyperbloom, or Aggravate, and more. You name it, and she can do it. And arguably, she is the best holder of 4-piece Deepwood Memories artifact set, which complements her entire playstyle and kit fantastically, by not only decreasing enemies' resistance to Dendro, but also increasing spread, bloom, hyperbloom, and burgeon damage for her entire team. So really a must-have character for every single account, no matter if you're a new player or you've been playing since launch. For our second Dendro character, it's technically not really a specific elemental character, but since we all have Traveler, and I bet most people are already using the Dendro version of this character, and if by any chance you're not using it, then I'll tell you why it's a must build, and by 2023, it's still the best version of Traveler. We saw what the Hydro Traveler was, and it wasn't pretty. So right off the bat, you can obtain all 6 constellations by simply following and progressing through the story, and it's completely free. This character has an elemental burst that is great for Dendro-based reactions with a good AoE, with the exception of Burgeon reactions, which I admit, not the best one for those, since the burst will get destroyed quickly when Pyro is applied, but other than that, it can almost do most things that Nahida does without the need for gacha luck or any primogems. And remember, I said Nahida can benefit really well from having Deepwood artifact set. Well, by farming the same domain, you can get Gilded Dream sets that can work really well on Traveler, although Deepwood Memories could also work for Traveler. I wouldn't really advise it, since Gilded Dream is better for Bloom teams, which most people will use Traveler for those reactions, since it's not good for Burgeon. For weapons, you have 2 good options that are Sacrificial Sword to help with energy recharge and effectively letting the elemental skill to be used again, in most cases based on your weapon's refinement, and for the absolute free-to-play players, you can use a craftable weapon called Sapwood Blade, which is acquired from Sumeru, and it's a great weapon. Overall, I'd say your account can absolutely benefit from having Dendro Traveler built, no matter if you're a new or a veteran player, and Spiral Abyss will be a lot easier by utilizing this character or Nahida if you have the Primogems. For our next element, Hydro. Here's a little rant. I had a hard time deciding between Xingqiu and Yelan, and for the second one, I decided it should be Kokomi, which I still have PTSD of losing my 50-50 on her banner, because I wanted to have her really badly, and yeah, I just don't want to remember that. Starting off with Xingqiu or Yelan, since I like them both, and personally I prefer Yelan because of the smoother gameplay and more fun elemental skill, at first I wanted to choose Yelan, but I had to take into consideration to not be biased and that Xingqiu is available on different banners, and you're more likely to have his constellations rather than Yelan's constellations, so he also provides more of a defensive role with providing interruption resistance, even though it's not the best. So it's now Xingqiu and Kokomi that are must-have characters, but keep in mind that Yelan is a close third character. Now starting off with Xingqiu, he has a consistent Hydro application and his burst will provide so much value off field and synergize as well in a lot of team comps, and unlike Yelan, he scales off of attack, meaning he can take advantage of buffs like Bennett Burst, and works great with on-field pyro DPS characters like Hu Tao, since he will apply Hydro consistently, providing more chance for vaporize reactions to occur. He's easy and straightforward to use, and almost any team can benefit from having Xingqiu in it. As for his artifact sets, with the 4-piece emblem set, 2-piece will improve his energy recharge, and 4-piece will improve his burst, which is the main part of his damage output. Also, Emblem Domain is one of the best and resin efficient domains to farm your artifacts, as it provides 2 artifact sets that can be used for a lot of characters, and you shouldn't miss out on it. And if you have a Sacrificial Sword or Favonius Sword, doesn't matter, you can use both of them, and he's a really valuable unit with those 2 weapons, and he's probably one of the characters that will always be used in the Spiral Abyss. Now for our second character in Hydro, it's Kokomi. She was hated during her release, but now people have realized, it's been a while, but people have realized that she's a must-have character, for most people at least. And the reason why I decided to go with Kokomi is not only that she can provide off-field hydro application, she can also heal your entire team efficiently. If you have her, you probably will not need any other healers for your account, as she is probably the best healer in the game, and her being Hydro means she can be used in many different team comps, and if by any chance you have Nilou and Nahida, she can be used in a team with them to get the absolute 100% benefit from having this character by offsetting the bloom self-damage that can occur during their reactions, especially with Nilou's Bountiful Cores ability. Only works in a team of Hydro and Dendro, making Kokomi a perfect candidate to fill that role, and she can even use a 3-star weapon called Thrilling Tales, meaning you don't even need any gacha luck to make her useful with her weapons. And her best artifact set is Ocean Hued Clam, which, if I'm being honest, that domain is not good and resin efficient if you're not building any Geo characters, because the other set is Husk of Opulent Dreams that is only good for characters that scale off of defense, which is mostly Geo characters. And even the set that you're gonna use for Kokomi only works for healers like Kokomi, so be aware of that. That is the only downside of building this character, but trust me, she's absolutely worth it. For our next element, Pyro. And I'm sure all of you have already guessed what I'm going to say, and I admit it, it's a boring and cliche answer that everyone else will probably give you, but it has to be Xiangling and Bennett. Let's face it, these 2 characters are bread and butter for most accounts when they're trying to go through the Abyss or any other hard content the game has to offer. Starting off with Xiangling, she has to be the best off-field pyro application in the game. With her amazing burst with a great AoE, you can get a free copy of her early on in the game by clearing the floor 3 of the Spiral Abyss, which isn't that difficult even as a beginner, so it means she's accessible to everyone, no matter if they're a newer or a veteran player. Right off the bat, she's pretty much a must-have character, but even with more constellations, she becomes so much better that it can perform better than most 5-stars, and I'm not even exaggerating. And I believe she's irreplaceable as a pyro support that can also be a sub DPS character, and she works great with 4-piece emblem sets. As I said before, that artifact domain is worth it, as its artifacts are being used by a lot of different characters. She can benefit from free-to-play weapons such as the catch that is obtained by fishing. As I said in the last video, if you don't have Raiden, because that weapon is great on Raiden, if you don't plan on using this weapon on her, I suggest you should be using it for Xiangling. If not, you can go ahead and use Dragon's Bane, which is the second best free-to-play option in my opinion, but it may require some gacha luck to obtain it. Either way, as of right now, Xiangling is the best character at what she does. Our second pyro character, Bennett. I doubt I'll even have to explain a lot, because basically he's a universally loved character by almost every Genshin Impact player, and everyone's using him whether it's in the Abyss or the open world. He needs practically minimal amount of on-field time. He can even heal the active character that stays on his burst, while given an unrivaled attack boost that no other character can bring, and doesn't need another character to work well. Instead, other characters need him to perform better. His playstyle is easy to understand, and it's hard to mess things up while using his burst and skill, so pretty much everyone can use this character and benefit from having a copy of Bennett. As for his artifacts, 4-piece Noblesse is your best bet to get the most value out of Bennett. Since you need high base attack for him, you need a weapon that has a high base attack, such as Alley Flash or Sapwood Blade, that are both 4 stars, if you're looking for a 5-star and you wished on standard banner sometimes and you got lucky, maybe you have a Skyward Blade, which can also be a great weapon for Bennett. But I'd say Sapwood Blade is probably better since it has the substat of energy recharge instead of Alley Flash with the Elemental Mastery that isn't that useful for Bennett. But in conclusion, Bennett is a must build and have character in the game, and I'm sure many of you are already aware of that. Now for our last element, Cryo. Without a doubt, the two best characters in Cryo that are really valuable are Ayaka and Ganyu, and here's why. For a starter, Ayaka. She has access to Cryo application at all times. Since her sprint grants her sword Cryo Infusion, she has a really strong burst that is probably one of the strongest ones in the game with high scaling that could possibly have a good AoE when it hits the right target, and she doesn't require a selfish long on-field time, and you can pretty much swap off of her after using her skill and burst, and her best in slot 4-star weapon is a free-to-play craftable called anemo-geo-electro, which the blueprint is obtained in Inazuma and is fairly straightforward. She has synergy with a lot of characters in different team comps and works well as a DPS or burst DPS in most situations, and by using 4-piece Blizzard Strayer artifact set, she works really well, especially since her Ascensions scales her crit damage as well, and you don't need to focus on her crit rate while using this artifact set, which is a good news. Meaning she's fairly easy and straightforward to build and use, and that domain is also a good and resin efficient one since the other set is Heart of Death, and both sets can be used on a few different characters. For our second and last character of this video, Ganyu. Not only she can be a main DPS, but she's also a fantastic sub DPS character, and she has a versatile playstyle based on your preference. Not only she does massive amounts of damage, she can provide all-field cryo application with her amazing burst and a useful elemental skill, meaning you don't have to worry about cryo application even if you don't want her as an on-field charge shot character. So basically, she can work in many different team comps and act as an off-field cryo support. If you prefer it that way, it's totally fine. She can benefit from using two absolute free-to-play craftable options. One is Hamayumi, which is obtained in Inazuma, and the other one is Prototype Crescent, which is available from the start of the game. And our artifact set is pretty straightforward, as it's the same set as Ayaka, with it being 4-piece Blizzard Strayer for the most amount of damage, although Wondrous Trope and Shimanova sets are also useful in their own rights depending on how you would prefer to use her. And with that, I covered 2 must-have characters per element, and if you haven't watched the part 1 of this video, I would highly suggest you should go and watch that one as well. And if you have any suggestions for future videos or anything related to Genshin Impact, let me know down below, and consider subscribing as it will help me a lot to stay motivated and create more content in the future. With that being said, have a good day or night, and peace.